Story's so awesome.
Thank you.
And like getting to know you, just like the few conversations that we've had, is just like you're such a cool guy as well.
I don't know about all that, but we'll find out, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And like I'm just super excited to share your story with my audience, with the world. I know it's like people have heard it before, but I think like I'm super tied into the startup scene, trying to build my own company, and a lot of the PR maybe that you've done in the past is more just like general helping build TRAXyL.
Yep.
And I definitely want to get into more like the technical aspects of how you've built the company, how you've gone through all the challenges with almost running out of money, how you found a co-founder, and just like all the
A
all
lot
the
of pain and
entrepreneurship
misery,
things.
right?
Yeah. But like getting through it, like there's a reason you're still here doing it.
That's right.
Like it's crazy. Like it's so fun for me just working on a project that I love. And I think most founders have that. And so I think the first thing really for me is just like, how did you get into painting fiber on the road?
Yeah. So, Daniel Turner, CEO, TRAXyL. We paint fiber optic cables on roads to avoid trenching. So, yeah, it's the founding story is always a pretty interesting one for founders. And the whole kind of idea started. My parents were trying to get internet out to where they lived in Virginia. They live probably 30 or 40 minutes from the center of the universe for the internet. If you're familiar with Ashburn, Virginia, it's kind of the center of the universe for the internet. All the data centers are there. There's a lot of fiber there. But they wanted fiber at their home in Warrenton, Virginia. And they called an ISP, I won't name them, but a very large tier one ISP, to come out and install fiber to the home. And they drove out to their house. And sort of the longer version of the story is it was almost like they were trying to hoodwink my parents.
Hmm.
They started trying to install DSL. So if you're familiar with DSL, it uses your old copper twisted pair telephone lines. And my dad kind of looked over the shoulder during the installation, was like, "Hey, I called for fiber to the home. What's going on here?" And it kind of made them back out of the work they had done. And they're like, "Yeah, you're not going to get fiber out here." And my parents were like, "What do you mean? Like we want to get fiber installed to our home?" And they laughed in their face. They're like, "You'll never get fiber out here. There's just not enough homes to justify the trenching. There's no telephone poles in your neighborhood." And this idea of using road networks and piggybacking off road networks, because the ISP drove out to my parents' house. If they could have just painted a fiber cable on the road, they could have brought the internet to my parents' house. So that's the idea that took root, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And fast forward 10 more years later, here we are. We're painting fiber cables on roads right now.
And so at the start, like when you have this idea, like you're like,
The light bulb
this is
moment.
like the light bulb moment. You're like, what if we could paint fiber on the road? What was like the next step Daniel took? Like, was this like next day you're starting to take action, or is this like kind of just
It
sitting
was within
there,
the
kind of
days and weeks
pondering?
pondering. You'd
Yeah.
fall asleep at night and imagine a semi truck driving down the highway at like 70 miles an hour and just dumping fiber out the back end of it and just screaming along and putting this on every road. So that was kind of the start of it. And early on, the thought was bonding it to the surface of the road. So totally on the
Mm-hmm.
surface. And so one of the first steps was, is anyone even doing something like this before? So there was a lot of patent searches and kind of seeing if there was anything out there that was similar, and then starting to write my own patents. So the first patent was a majority I'd actually written myself. My dad certainly helped out a lot and proofread my horrible, horrible uh, verbiage. But that was what we started working on, and then I started buying some equipment to do some small tests in the garage. Where all great startups begin is in the garage, and so we kind of put this fiber down and bonded it to the pavement and put a source on one end of it and looped it around and put a meter on the other end so we can monitor it. And then over the next few months, it was over wintertime, my parents would drive in and out of the garage, and I would watch the monitor and record the data, and we never lost signal. So it wasn't like what the solution is today by any stretch, but it was enough to say there's something here. Like this needs to be explored a little bit further, and that's kind of the start of the journey. Is what is the next thing that we have to learn or explore to answer a question to know if we're moving in the right direction or not.
Yeah, so you kind of validated like if the idea is like remotely feasible,
If it
kind of like
even
just
makes sense,
yeah.
if it's something that you could not just talk to, but like kind of show what you're
Yeah.
doing, like in a very, very, very primitive way. So that was kind of the start of the process.
Did you go through any like figuring out like if there was demand for such a thing? Like was there any thought of like maybe people just won't want to use this at all, or was it just like this has to exist in the world? Like it's such a revolutionary concept.
It was like I had known fiber to be useful. I was growing up, going to Virginia Tech. I was a computer science major. Having that fiber connectivity was important in the homes that I lived in. And my last home, I actually had to move out of the Blacksburg area a little bit to a house that had a satellite dish, and so I'd have to sync the satellite dish to a satellite and check the power levels, and then I could get a good enough to either upload a project or send some program that I'd written by some deadline. And it was scary not having that connectivity. And I was a big fan of Counter-Strike, man. So you had to have those frames per second up, but you also had to have that lag time down. And so very familiar with the needs of having that good connection made. And just growing up knowing about that, that's kind of what made me think, okay, this might be a problem my dad's facing, but it might be something that many other people are facing. Certainly, fiber isn't everywhere. And the more we looked at it, the bigger the problem, kind of shown itself, the last mile problem. And the problem just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it was a global issue, coming to recognize that. Around the time they were trying to roll out 5G, and 5G, the wireless solution, was supposed to be the new high-tech way to deliver broadband, but most people don't even realize that you need fiber cables to backhaul from those 5G antennas. And so even rolling out 5G is still that last mile problem and getting that connection made. So yeah, the market just kept getting bigger and bigger the more we looked at it, which was exciting, but man, didn't it open up Pandora's box, just the research alone. So
when you were like today, like you've done so much development, and like we'll get like into that for sure. Like where you're at now, you're literally able to just paint this thing on the road. Like you're sketching, like you're creating a little divot for this fiber cable to go into, filling it on top, and you're able to move at like record pace, like 1,000 feet per hour or something like that.
Yeah,
and you can do like a whole mile in a day.
Pretty much, yeah. So
like, that's crazy though, right? Like that's insane. Like,
it's
that's
pretty
crazy.
wild when you look at how fiber cables and other cables and infrastructure get installed. There's a lot of effort and machinery and equipment that goes into it, and projects definitely take a long time. Not only is the installation period long, but even the planning stages, engineering, the permitting processes all take a really long time. And yes, when we thought of this idea and have developed it to a point where it's essentially as simple as painting a stripe on a road, like a line stripe on a road. We have these machines we've developed called TRAXtors. I had to build the first one in my parents' garage because, initially we were crawling around on our hands and knees to install this stuff for customers. And so we had invented the solution we call FiberTrax. We had invented FiberTrax, but we now recognize that it's still painful and slow to install, crawling around on your hands and knees. My dad would pull me in a wagon. My co-founder would be dumping resin into this little hand drag box that we had. We needed to build the automated equipment to make this thing kind of scale and make it automated and easy to use. And so, yes, over years and years of trial and error and development, we have these machines we call TRAXtors that essentially can paint fiber optic cables on demand at about 1,000 feet an hour. We have done projects where we've done more than a mile in a day. with this stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
like I was
evolved.
looking at trenching, and it's like $60,000 a mile. Like
And that's in
that's
like very kind of rural environments. If you try to trench in downtown Detroit, for example, it's like $700 a foot, a linear foot to trench. And we know this
wow. Yeah.
because that same tier one ISP I mentioned in an earlier comment that was trying to deliver fiber to my dad's house and told him that he'd never get it. They were struggling to get fiber to the main stage for the NFL draft. And they were trenching in downtown Detroit, and they had an issue. They accidentally kind of fell into or collapsed a basement. Apparently in downtown Detroit, the basements extend out beyond the fronts of the buildings. And so there was a local business in downtown Detroit that had its basement kind of cave in or collapse in. And so they got shut down on their trench work, and they told us that their trenching costs are like $700 a foot. And if you do the math, take 700 by 5280, you're looking at a huge cost to try to do something in an urban environment. And they called us up and said, hey, TRAXyL, can you guys come up by like next Saturday and install about 1,000 feet of fiber in downtown Detroit for the NFL draft? And we said, absolutely, we'll come right up. And so, yeah, we went up, we got the fiber connected, and they utilized our fibers to support, I think it was record numbers, like 700,000 people had participated in the draft.
So when I think of fiber, I think of something that's like relatively well built out. Like at my apartment, I get ads for Google Fiber like in my mail every week. And so when I think of like the addressable market, like where like there's obviously demand for high speed internet, but like in my mind, I'm like Detroit seems like a city where it's like why like fiber should already
should be there.
So like how is it not there, and like what has prevented it from being there? Because like when I think of like urban cities, I would think that fiber is like already in it, and this is more of a, like you were saying, last mile problem for rural neighborhoods where maybe it doesn't make sense for traditional fiber to be out there. But like downtown Austin, like it's
pretty prevalent,
probably.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, TBD. There's still probably areas that aren't connected. And yeah, when we first had the idea, it was to try to solve. I wouldn't say my parents live in a rural area, but they're in a neighborhood, but not in a major city. So yeah, it could be rural or suburban kind of environment, and there wasn't fiber out there. But when we looked at this, it didn't affect just rural. It was everything, even urban environments. And yeah, there is a lot of fiber in these urban environments, and I would say most of the fiber is connecting to all the major cities, and there's middle mile and long haul fiber interconnecting all the major cities together. But if you look at those old ADC maps, I might be dating myself, nobody might know what a paper map looks like anymore, but they have those highways that are colored in blue, and then those major roads that are colored in red, and then sort of the neighborhood roads are all colored in white. And I would say that fiber is probably pretty prevalent on the blue roads and the red roads, if you think about fiber being and mimicking the road network. But there's a lot of those white roads that are just not connected, or they're needing to add to the connections that are already there. They need to add services. So our solution really is a flexible way to add new fiber feet or miles and new fiber strands to even in densified areas where a new building is not connected, or new construction projects going on, or they cut a cable and there's weeks to repair and they've got to find another solution. We were in Manhattan and we were talking to some potential customers that talked about buildings that were essentially in digital deserts. They were islands with no connectivity to them, and the city wouldn't let them trench a cable in because of the metro or the subway system underground, and they couldn't string the cables overhead because that's just not a thing. And so if the conduits aren't there, if the pathways aren't there, sometimes even in urban environments in downtown New York, they struggle to find a good way to get connections made. So it's really a problem that is everywhere. And kind of the whole reason that we developed this tool is not to be the end-all be-all, not to replace all the other techniques. It's really a way to add another tool in the tool bag for an installer to use. And maybe they choose to do a horizontal directional drill or string cables aerially on poles, but they can come off of those poles and now cross a parking lot with fiber tracks. They can go down the shoulder of a highway, and then across underneath the highway, they might use a horizontal directional drill or some other trenching method. So it's really a new way to kind of think about it, not to replace everything, but to work complementary with all the other techniques that exist.
Really cool. And so, like, when you were like, all this is kind of possible because of this Traxter invention, right? Like,
Correct,
if you had like people who are having to like put in the overlaying putty on this fiber optic cable, it'd be just logistical chaos, I presume.
Well, so with every start or end of a run, we do usually have a little bit of the handwork, right? We have to get up close to a building or a curb or transition into a handhole or a junction box. So there is always kind of a little bit of the handwork, but the chemicals we use, the resins we use, they're easy to manipulate by hand. And yeah, we've proven it that you could do some pretty long installations crawling around, getting pulled in wagons. But man, if you can do 99% of a segment with the machine, the Traxter, then the little 1% at the start and end of each run is manageable.
And so when you were building this stuff in your garage, like, was the Traxter from the garage, or did you
first
graduate?
Traxter was from the garage.
And was that fully automated, or was that like a semi-automated, like proving out what piece you can do in the automation?
So we, in those early days, like I mentioned, we were bonding everything to the surface of the road. And you know, you kind of touched on today, we do a little etching. We cut a little channel. We'll vacuum the debris. We'll place the payload, and then we'll seal it with a very, very durable resin that basically cures. Like it's like plexiglass when it cures, and it bonds to asphalt stronger than asphalt bonds to itself. So it's a very, very hardy, durable resin that we use. But in those early days, we were completely and totally above the surface level. And so we were bonding cables with UV cured resin. So we would put the cable down on the ground and put a little bit of resin on top. And then we had these cure lamps that would go across and cure very quickly this UV resin that would lock that cable in place. And we found that initially that was what we were just trying to do. Very small cables, just UV resins. Over time, we had some test sites out there that the sun would sort of bake this UV resin, and it would start to yellow and then get brittle and then start delaminating from the pavement. So we needed another material. And so the first Traxter that I built, yes, it could place a cable and put UV resin on it and cure UV resin, and you could drive forward and you would be left with this like snail trail looking thing of fiber cable, and that you could make a connection with that. You could actually get service with that. But to make it a little hardier, we found that other chemical that cures into plexiglass. And so it became a 2-pass process. So the first pass, the machine would install the snail trail fiber cable, and we'd get the 2 endpoints connected. Then we'd reset the machine back at the starting point, and we had a little hopper that we took the applicator off. We put this little hopper right over the existing line, and this resin is a 2-part resin. So you kind of mix it, and then while it's mixed, you have like limited work time to work with it because it starts getting hot and curing up pretty quick. And so my co-founder would be holding a 5-gallon bucket and be walking with me and dumping it into this hopper as we drove from point A to point B. And so it was a semi-autonomous automatic system with my co-founder doing the heavy lifting to hold the buckets and walk with the machine and dump the material in. And with the second pass, we could build up a much more robust and durable line. In fact, there was a neighborhood in Greenville, South Carolina. It was a low-income neighborhood. They had no fiber connectivity, and an ISP had reached out to us, and we worked with them to coordinate this. But essentially, we built an optical ring in this neighborhood. We crossed the drive aisles and parking lots of this neighborhood in 4 different locations to get these apartment buildings. There were like 36 apartment buildings we helped connect. But in these 4 locations, they used our product to go across the drive aisle, and that whole neighborhood was up and running for over 5 years. That was the length of the contract for this ISP to deliver service. So for that 5 years, we never lost optics. They never lost optics. In fact, they had like 3 or 4 outages that happened in the grassy areas next to the apartment buildings where people were digging and cut the buried cable. So it's just kind of an interesting dynamic where you're thinking about sort of the susceptibility of it being on the road. But what we're finding is that we can kind of make it durable and last long enough to provide really good value at really low cost and have it last for years and years and years. And that, again, was like our old way of doing it. Our new way, where we're embedding it into the surface, it kind of lasts as long as the surface it's bonded to lasts, is kind of what we're finding. We're still figuring out and learning how long this stuff can last, but in a lot of places, it's lasting a really long time. And we have installed it in some pretty hardcore areas. So we're on shipping ports where top loaders and containers are driving over it every day. We're on Air Force bases to include flight lines and runways and have had B-1 bombers, and we're serving signals to where aircraft are parked so that they can be maintained at these sunshades. We're helping to connect equipment that helps aircraft land in bad weather. So there's some really hardy places that we've installed this that are it's serving good connectivity there too. So
in my journey, like through entrepreneurship, like creating such like great products require like great talent and time.
Oh man.
And
time.
You've been on this for like 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy. And so but you've also had an awesome co-founder.
Yep.
Who's helped you build
Known him since middle school.
Yeah, since like the beginning of the project almost.
Yeah.
When we had a prior conversation, it seemed like you were on the fence of kind of letting him join maybe at the beginning, or like there was some conversations there, and he kind of forced his way in, which is like a unique thing. And maybe I'm not explaining it perfectly, but like for me, where I'm at in my journey, I'm definitely looking for people to help build projects, and more than that, just like trying to connect people together that I've met to build projects, and how can like value be created from the people that I know to serve some problem that exists. And so I think what's really cool about the story is like how you've made it 10 years on this. Managing to work with the same guy the whole time.
Yeah.
And also like all the struggles that you eventually got to before getting your first contract. Because I know like that piece before you get the first customer is kind of like, that's where it's like you're doubting yourself every day. Or at least
every day
like,
you doubt. Every day you doubt. I was fortunate enough. I knew my co-founder since middle school. So we had grown up together. When we were 18 over the summer, we both signed up to clear this guy's backyard of trees and shrubbery and brush. And we threw out a number at him. We did some initial estimates, and we gave him a number. And over the summer, we had to go and rent the chipper, and we had to rent the chainsaws, and we had to rent the stump grinders, and we had to rent all this equipment and then deal with all this debris afterward. And, we did the math afterward, and over the course of the summer, I think we got paid like less than minimum wage. So we learned a couple things. One, we learned that we could work together for sure. We learned that we're both hard workers and we'll do whatever it takes to get the job done. We definitely learned about how to make better estimates of costs. And, it's funny, even today, we still struggle with pricing and cost and what to charge and how to charge and what are our costs of goods sold on stuff. And, we're still going through those processes and to try to figure them out. But we were on a bachelor party, and I had this idea, I'd say in March, and I was starting to do the research on patents and write the patent. And then I formed the LLC. I kind of funded it initially with a bank account. I wasn't even looking for a co-founder. I didn't even really know what that meant. I was just starting this journey of like, I'm going to start my own business, and this will be great, and this will be fun. And I was moonlighting it while I worked at my old job. But I was kind of excited to share this with him as a friend. We every year we go on a yearly canoe trip. So we stayed in touch after college and after high school. We would go on this canoe trip that had like at one point like 50, 60 people that would join. And it's just basically a fun weekend trip where you're camping and canoeing down the river. And that was a way we, stayed connected to a bunch of our friends from high school. But so we had that going on. But we were on a bachelor party for another friend. And I told him about this idea. And he was like, this is amazing. Like, this is I guess he really, really hated it where he worked and wanted to start a business too. And he had tried to start another business prior to this. And, it's just finding the right business and the timing and the tech it's always a challenge, but he thought it was amazing. And I was like, he's like, I want to be part of this. And I was like, whoa. I'm not like sure I'm like ready for that yet. And I just wasn't ready. It wasn't like he forced himself in. I didn't know what steps I needed to take, and I was still figuring that out. And all he knew is he wanted to be a part of it, and I knew he would be a part of it at some point. It was just a matter of like, how do you bring somebody in? And so, having to go through those processes and figure it out. He went home and he wrote this whole business plan and he sent me, and I think he called it fiber lay at the time. And I was like, I don't know if fiber lay is the right name for something like this, but he was definitely interested. This was back in 2015, 2014, 2015 timeframe. And, sad to say, our friend that ended up getting married and getting divorced in the same period of time, we're still going strong. He's still my co-founder after 10 years. Luckily, my friend did also get remarried and now has a kid. So no pain for my friend there, my other friend there that we were on his bachelor party for. But yeah, my co-founder, he's been great. We struggled, right, for a long time. He was helping my dad, pour the resins in the buckets as I'm getting pulled in the wagons. And then, because you go out and you're like, okay, we got to go find customers. That's what we need to do next. We got to go find customers. So we didn't have the machines. We just had a process. And so we tried to go find some local customers. And I think we got some economic development funding from our town. And we helped get a school connected for their baseball fields and their concessions and their ticket booth and their football stadium. We got all this connected with fiber, crawling around on our hands and knees. And it's painful because we both basically went full-time on this in 2017. And so we had no paycheck coming in. We had no customers that could pay us a paycheck. We're applying for all these grants and SBIR awards and programs. And I remember asking him, hey, what is like the last date that we can keep working on this where you like fume out and like you have to go find another job? And so he told me this date. It was like this day, this month. I've done the math, my credit cards, like figured it out. This is the day. We blew through that date. And then it was like, okay, what's the real date? What's like the absolute worst date? And he gave me another date and we blew right through that date too. I had moved back into my parents' basement, as a 30-year-old. That's painful and sacrificial for sure. A bunch of girlfriends I had just couldn't deal with that. And man, so there was a lot of sacrifice there. I didn't have any paycheck coming in. So we went for like 2 or 3 years without paycheck. And I remember, we had been applying to all these accelerator programs and incubators, and we've been through several of those. And the third one that I went into was actually out in Austin, which is where we are today. And that was back in 2019, Mass Challenge. We got accepted to this accelerator in Austin. I was moving out to Texas. He was going to stay in Virginia. Mind you, he had a wife and like 3 kids. So, very challenging for him. And I remember getting down to about $1 in my bank account. My checking account had $1 in it. I did have some retirement savings that I saved and definitely drew from that from time to time at massive penalties. But I had $1 left in my checking account, and times were looking really dire. And we won our first big contract that month. It was awesome.
Such a cool story.
It was awesome, man.
Yeah.
We won a contract from the Army Corps, and man, it was sweet release, sweet relief, and could pay ourselves. We started paying ourselves our first salary late 2019. So,
wow. Like,
it was dicey.
Going into that month, were you like aware of like this talk of this contract coming on? Like how fast did that come up and just out of the blue? Like
So we had been applying for SBIRs. So we were applying for NSF, National Science Foundation, Small Business Innovation Research grants. We had applied in 2015, got rejected, applied in 2016, got rejected, applied in 2017, and we finally won a small contract amount. It was like $200K, which, you know, 2/3 of it go right out the window immediately. And then the other 1/3, you know, we gave ourselves a little bit of a paycheck that for just a few months of not a full paycheck, just enough to buy food or something. And
enough
so
to
we
buy the
were,
rice
and
and
that
beans on
went
the
quick.
shelf.
And then it was back to no paycheck for a while. We had written white papers. We were applying to all this stuff, and we were talking with the Army Corps, and they had found our white paper. We had applied to this like Rapid Innovation Fund opportunity that we saw, and we written this white paper, and the Army Corps kind of picked it up and was like, "Hey, can you get, you know, we think this is interesting. Can you guys write us a proposal?" And I think we wrote them the proposal in like, I don't know, 2018, I mean, it felt like it took for years to actually get where the award came through. So it's like, you don't ever know it's coming or not. We've sent since then so many proposals out that have never got accepted or picked up. But man, that one came as a bit of a surprise, and it came at the best possible time because we were actually totally fuming out. We had months, I'd say, left, if that. I mean, he had months left. He, you know, had a family. I will just, I'll keep going until I run out of every resource that I can. I was fortunate enough to have awesome parents that allowed me to basically live with them and feed me, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I was taken care of in terms of my human needs, but had nothing else left.
Wow.
So.
And it's like it's not just like you're pulling money from retirement. Like what's crazy is like the fact that you had like you were saying you had credit cards like just piling
Oh
on debt.
yeah.
Like that is just like, to me, like I've heard people just like, yeah, I'm piling up credit card debt. Like I'm the guy who just pays off his credit card bill. And I always check my checking account to make sure I have enough to pay out the credit card bill.
Yep.
So like racking up the credit card debt. I mean, that's like,
I think my
to me, it's
co-founder,
just like-
he had another home. He had to sell that, and he burned through all the proceeds from that home. He had to refinance his mortgage several times on his other home, and he was definitely doing the credit card things. I was really trying to avoid credit card debt as much as I can. We did have to go into some of that, but I had to take money out from my retirement account, and it was like a triple, quadruple whammy on tax time. And it was like the penalties were there. They treated it as income. Even though it was Roth IRA, I still had to pay taxes on it because it was like this. It was just like crazy how the tax system kind of works for people that are pulling out of their retirement early. So definitely don't recommend it or figure it out. I think I had to pay penalties on that for like 7 years. You know, I don't want to say 7 years. It was some long period of time where it was like I had to get on like a payment plan because it was just so like the penalties they don't just like, here's your penalty and like pay it off over time. It's like the longer it goes, the penalties continue to rack up. Mm-hmm. And so it was almost like a cyclical thing where I had to take more money out to pay the penalties, which induced new penalties the next go around. And it was like getting really kind of snowbally. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, you know, it was painful to go through that process.
So after you get that though, like it was a successful contract. And then, like, you just start getting more and more contracts? Like, what was the
the Army
steps?
Corps of Engineers has been great for us with new contracts, new work, new installations. We're doing installations all over the country. We're building new prototype equipment for them. We're doing our first international project with them. So yeah, they've been fantastic. We also had a lot of success. I didn't even know this, but the only SBIR program at the time I thought about or knew about was the National Science Science Foundation. Well, turns out the Air Force has a bunch of SBIR stuff. And it wasn't until I was going through the accelerator here in Austin that I got plugged into the Capital Factory and met people that were talking about AFWorks and these SBIRs. And that unlocked a whole nother revenue stream for us to get awarded, the SBIRs. We did some phase 1s, 2s, phase 2 mods, TAC-5s, phase 3s. So yeah, we're continuing to have success with the Air Force as well. We're still hopeful the Navy comes through. We're anticipating a future Navy contract, but as of yet, we've only done a small project for them on a base to give them connectivity, and we did it for free because it was supporting a pretty cool exercise. So they use our fiber cable on a network to support this yearly exercise the Navy does.
So where do you see the future of TRAXyL being like right now? Would you hope to get more into the doing more NFL draft-esque downtown connectivity? Or is it like see the military stuff just kind of like I presume it's probably easier because they just kind of be like, we have this new base we're building, or we need this at this
even on old
location.
bases, they always seem to have needs for connectivity. There's all kinds of reasons they would want to have quick deployment capability and tactical fiber deployment capability. So I think the military and DoD, and we're also doing contracts with Customs and Border Protection. So I think federally there's a lot of need, which is great. It's like triple use, dual use and triple use. Commercially, man, it could be big. We hope that the ISPs don't just call us when they have some terrible situation and they're using us in sort of a temporary afterthought. We'd love to be integrated into the planning stages. And I know BEAD funding, I don't know if you're familiar, there's a lot of talk about BEAD funding coming down, which is basically the federal government providing cash or capital to the states for them to help them roll out for broadband connectivity in rural and hard to reach areas. So there's a lot of ISPs sort of waiting in the wings for what happens with BEAD funding, if that comes down the pipe, and there could be a lot of opportunity for us. We just hope that we can kind of integrate into that planning phases and not just be sort of an afterthought.
Yeah.
We have done projects with ISPs and have done fiber to the home projects before, but not at scale. It's just a matter of getting all the equipment built and get the ISPs excited about what it could do to lower their costs for homes passed and fiber to home. So, one day my parents might get fiber out to where they live because of this.
When you're thinking about competitors and just like how the space evolves for internet connectivity, like Starlink has been such a big player for so many people across the world, and like there's just people that I know who will go camping and they'll bring their Starlink.
Oh yeah, Starlink's great,
and they'll use it there. But like I'm not sure that's really a competitor because like, it's a different service.
They're helping solve a problem for hard to reach and potentially underserved locations, and they're great. I mean, for being out on the open seas, or you're that last home up on a mountain, or you're a community that really has no other alternatives, it could provide some great connectivity solutions. I think that at certain points, the density of people gets just too high, and the capacity for what can be served through the Starlink system becomes too challenging. Where fiber, the capacity is just, it's so big, like they keep breaking their own records for how much data they can send just down a single piece of glass the size of a human hair. They continue to break records on the capacity of just that one piece of glass. And fiber cables can have hundreds of fibers, if not more, inside of them. So there's a place for Starlink. It's great. It's a great option for people that literally have no other choice. We think our solution is going to help get the more densified areas connected, and even to wireless antennas, bringing the signal to or from an antenna and helping to backhaul or front haul from those points. Our solution is just going to kind of fit alongside with all the other techniques, whether it's trenching, boring, micro trenching, antennas, cups with string.
Yeah.
At the end of the day is what you got. And
so how many states have you Do you know how many states you service? Or you
We've
just
installed fiber tracks in 22 states.
22 states.
22 states.
And how many projects going on at one time?
We have a small, scrappy team, and the install team, goes from project to project to project. There has been a couple occasions where 2 projects are concurrent, and we've had to build 2 different teams, and myself or my co-founder might be on one of those install teams still.
So you're kind of like a pod of people.
Yes.
Rotating around.
Yep.
But you can install so fast that you're just
we can go from point to point. One of our challenges we're discovering is to go to 22 states, you have to have trucks, trailers, equipment, hazardous materials before they're cured to deliver all of those. So it's a logistics challenge. We've done projects in California, Washington State, and so we'll try to get the customers to sort of link them all together where we can say, hey, here's your install window. It's on our way to the next site, so we have to finish by this time, or we're coming back through and we can do it at this time. And so we'll chain a bunch of them together, but it's just getting the distribution figured out and logistics figured out. And I think at some point, TRAXyL will have offices kind of in every state eventually. We do have 4 offices in Virginia, 1 in Florida, and then I'm out here in Texas to try to open up and stand up a new facility out here. So more to come on that one.
That's great. And so when you were building up, like, having national coverage requires employees, requires people helping you out beyond just you and your co-founder. And so before that initial contract, like, did you have other people? And then what is the hiring process for you looked like, and how have you thought about that to vet people? Like, finding someone who's willing to be mobile is kind of hard. Travel around. So
trust is hard, and finding good people that can work hard and you can trust them to do anything is definitely a challenge. We've definitely gone through some great people have worked at TRAXyL and continue to work at TRAXyL. We've had some not so great people that have come in, but it's a challenge. I think initially it was my dad, my uncle, me, my co-founder, and then when we won our first big contract, we brought on our first outside the family friend group hire, and we brought in a senior engineer who's still with us today. And then from there, it was kind of just balancing the projects we had, the people we needed to support, the abilities for us to support, and as the contracts started to come in, like, we would just have to hire more people. And we're at the point now where we have, I think, 20 or 21 employees, and then I met 2 of them actually here on Friday, 2 potential installers, and we're going to give offer letters to 2 of them. And we're continuing to kind of figure out what our needs are, and without overextending ourselves and burning up our runway, like just balancing what we know is coming down the pipe, what we hope we get that we're pretty confident in, and then just making sure we time it right. We use services like Indeed, and we've used LinkedIn before. Word of mouth is good sometimes too. It's challenging for sure. One of our employees came by way of like a broker, I guess, or I don't know exactly what they're called, but they found somebody that fit a need we had, and we had to pay the commission for them. But this employee's been great, and they came all the way from Washington State. We weren't even looking in that area. So sometimes you can get good people. They might just be out of your kind of local area that you're working in. We're kind of competing in Northern Virginia with a lot of the big defense contractors. There's a lot of good talent and engineers, and we're kind of right on the edge of drivability to DC, and there's great people everywhere. It's just sometimes how you're looking for them, when you're looking for them, and then getting the timing right.
So when it comes to entrepreneurship, like 10 years of handling this thing.
Pain.
And then like
spurts of joy.
Like how do you, what's your process for kind of going about it? Because like for me, I think I live on this principle, like life is kind of just pain. Like I'm kind of in that vibe where like everything is just as it is, but it's like what would what actually makes the needle move tomorrow? Like when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, like it's probably painful to do this. It's probably painful to work on something for super long, get less sleep. But the alternative means that I wake up tomorrow and I'm in a similar situation to
The
yesterday.
work's always still there.
Yeah.
You never get through it.
No.
The more you do, the more you have to do.
Yeah. For sure.
It's weird and sort of funny how that kind of works, but it just never goes away. And so it's just, what can you solve today? What are the ways that you can think about the priorities? There's fast but hard, slow and hard, fast and easy, and slow and easy. And I think the fast and easy ones people knock out first. But then I think people, I think that they could switch the priorities between fast and hard, or when I say hard, I mean like important. Slow and important are the ones that nobody ever gets to, but they're the ones that they should be getting to first. The ones that aren't important but are fast, people do, but they probably shouldn't. So it's like you knock out the small stuff because it's easy, but is it really that important? And the stuff that's important, that's hard, you just never get to. So it's just kind of reprioritizing some of that. It never goes away.
Yeah, I really like this frame that I heard from a podcast recently. It was like, I forget the exact person who said, like, because they were just reiterating someone else's message.
Yep.
But thinking about, like, it might be Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, one of them.
Sure.
Who said this. Looking at a business, like, what's the one thing I could do tomorrow that could kill it? And then do the opposite of that thing. So, like...
One way to think about it.
Like, for you, like, where do you see, like, the current constraint of your business that you're, like, if it was solved tomorrow, would be way better for the business, but might be, like, something that's pretty hard?
Yeah, I mean, I think time's always one of the major killers. We're trying to develop this new version of the equipment that we believe could be released to third parties. Right now we have machines that we can use, and we could probably train a third party how to use them, but they're still full of the gremlins, and they're not the most simple and easy to use machines. They're still a little complicated. And so if we can kind of make that productized and get a machine that we definitely feel comfortable releasing to third parties, then we could just become a manufacturer and just mass produce machines and get out of the installation business. But because this is so new and we're still trying to prove this technology in the market, we're having and being forced to be the installation company to do it. Though we'd love to just turn machines and technology over to everybody that could use it to go out and solve problems. And instead of us looking for problems to solve, we could be solving people problems that they already have. So I think just getting that design and that machine built, it's not, like I said, I grew up at tech with computer science background, and man, it's great to just do an update, send it out to everybody through the fiber networks, just do that quick software update and get a new version going. If we have to change anything on the hardware side, it's like massive delays, weeks to months of we went down the wrong path. We have to back out and get new chassis welded and get new motors. The motors aren't strong enough, and get these sensors in here, and the pump's not calibrating properly. We got to get a new pump, and it's just so hard. And with the supply chain for hardware, it just becomes even longer and harder. So I think shrinking time down is something I'm always trying to do and look at, and be fast and fail fast and try to get to the next thing faster. But as fast as you still want to go, you're just limited by the speed that the world works in. It's challenging.
Like, I don't know if you know some of the popular business people that are on the internet today. One of my favorites, this guy Alex Hermosi, but he has a thing. He did a podcast recently. He was talking about how a lot of the work is like needs to be done, but it's like how much it's the work. There's work that like I love doing, there's work that people love doing, and then there's work that just comes up and you have to do it to get to the stuff that you love doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what for you is the work that you love doing, and what's the work that like pops up that's just like, I wish this was not a part of this.
I love the tech and the
Yeah.
getting into the development of the equipment and the design, and that's the place that I don't ever have time to go anymore and can't ever do. And I have a team of engineers doing all the fun stuff that I used to be able to do. I don't know. I miss that piece of it, of solving the problems, getting something that's not working quite right, figuring out why, learning why, and then implementing it on a hardware level. Now, I'm certainly figuring out what's not working and trying to fix it on a business level and a financial level, but it's not where my heart is. My heart's in the design and the technical piece. Finding and winning big contracts is great. The proposal process is always challenging. Everybody's talking about AI potentially being able to help with some of that. And I don't know. I'm not the biggest proponent of AI. I'm a little leery of what it can do. And if everybody's using it, then everything just starts looking the same. And I like to still keep that freshness of uniqueness and human touches on things. And yeah, I know AI will probably help in a lot of realms of the boredom piece and maybe make proposal writing not as painful as it is. But yeah, I think I gravitate towards the hardware
Just
and the
solving
software.
problems.
Yeah.
Like the
I just want to
tedious
solve
piece.
problems.
Yeah, that's what I like doing as well. It's also like why I love writing software, because like it's just all problems all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's just, how do I make thing do this, and then the feedback loop is so fast.
It's so fast. You get that, man, I fixed it, and
Yeah.
on to the next one. And
Exactly.
sometimes with hardware, you don't know that you have a problem until like months or years later. And we went down this whole track on surface mount for years and had to pivot in like 2022 to go completely flush mount. We're still doing some development on surface mount stuff. We've got a very unique situation that we're working on, and I'll be able to share more at a future date. We have a pretty unique environment that we're looking at. But the flush mount just seems more like what the customers gravitated towards. So we had to basically back out of all of our development and redo all of our equipment. And, it's finding bugs years later and then taking years to undo the bugs. So it's a little different. You don't get that immediate success feeling that you get with software for sure.
And so you're now married, is that right?
Yeah, and I didn't mention that this is another employee and how we met. So I met my wife at a conference, and I was trying to poach her from her other company, and I was like, you need to come work with me. And she kind of laughed and was like, you haven't even raised your seed round yet. This was like just before 22. And I was like, yeah, but when I do, you'll come work for me and it'll be great. And she saw a post I posted on LinkedIn that I had raised my seed round, and she wanted to have dinner. And so I was flying to California at the time, and I was doing a site survey at the port of LA, and we met for dinner on Thursday, and I don't know what it was, but by Sunday she was driving to Virginia with me. I had thought I booked a flight for Sunday, and turns out like I couldn't find it. I didn't have any flight information, and she just looks at me and she's like, let's just drive. And I was like, yeah, man, that would, it could either be the worst cross country drive from California to Virginia, but man, I recommend that. We haven't basically left each other's side since. And that was 3 years ago. We're having our first baby in about a month.
Congratulations.
And yeah, we got married in October.
Wow.
So yeah, just finding that girl that's just, maybe is hesitant at first, and you don't have all your ducks in a row lined up, and you don't have the financial abilities yet to be able to take care of a family. But then, getting enough backing and being able to sell the company to investors, then I could hire more people. She could feel comfortable taking a job. It quickly turned not to just the job. She still works with me. She's great. She's my EA. She takes care of everything calendar-wise and meeting-wise, and she runs projects. She manages customer projects.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's fantastic hire.
Yeah.
But she's also a great wife. And but meeting somebody that totally gets what we're trying to do, and having the thoughts of, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity, not even with just the business, but even with this person, and her just being like, let's just drive, and me just being like, man, there's something really cool about a girl that could just be like, let's just do a road trip after not having known each other for a few months and go cross country and just move in with you.
Well,
it was
it's
pretty
like
wild.
it's a risk. I think there's a lot of like, I think
With no risk comes no reward.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
entrepreneurial mentality. It's like the best things come for those willing to get out of their comfort zone and take risks. And, it doesn't work out for a lot of people maybe sometimes. But, I think that I've taken calculated risks my whole life. I've definitely been in risky business before, and businesses, and have done, risky things for the country. Formerly worked for the federal government doing some pretty interesting things. But so not shy of risk, and maybe I just put risk in a different way. I can manage it along the way. I always feel like I can always keep it managed, and certainly take risks that are calculated and smart, and have huge opportunity on the outset. And maybe things don't work out initially, or you fail and you just keep trying, but with the trial and error you're going to learn more and more, and then you can continue to take risks because you're comfortable with how you can handle the fallout should something go terribly wrong. Luckily for me and my wife, nothing went terribly wrong on that drive home.
Yeah, that's such a good story. I think like hearing how people met is always super fun for me. Like everyone has little different stories of like how the initial days played out. And it's like it's just fun hearing like how connections born. One interesting thing for me is like thinking about or at least like being at the Capitol Factory, that's like where we met.
Yep.
And just like the networking here has been so nice.
Oh yeah, it's been incredible.
And the importance of networking, but also like finding like I think a lot of people like will just network to network, and like that's like you can I think there's infinite benefit in networking. Like you can meet someone who just changes everything
Totally.
with an idea.
Yeah.
And so like in that like maybe it's like a risky game in a way, because maybe you don't find that person, but maybe you do.
The risk is time.
Yeah.
Right? Like you just keep going to try to find something, and you just run out of time. So your just time runs out.
Yeah.
And I think that time is always challenging to balance, and you don't want to lose it. But again, without going out there and taking the risks and losing the times that you went to a networking event and nothing ever came of it, it's still worth it. It's still worth going and learning how to talk to people and being comfortable, and it just can improve, what events you go to next time. Like, oh, that one wasn't as good as maybe I should go to something else. And yeah, you got to there's always going to be opportunities. It's just sifting through which opportunities are real and which ones are uncertain and unknown, and you're going to invest some time to figure it out.
So if you had advice for a 24-year-old entrepreneur who is trying to build a AI app to help graphic designers make graphic design things way easier and faster, which is all AI, but basically just taking a risk on building something, what would your advice be for like year 1 of 10, like to get the first contract?
Get out while you can. Don't do it. It's a bit tongue in cheek, but I do kind of mean it to a certain extent, because the people that can go off and start businesses are people that don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
They will figure it out. They'll listen to advice. They may internalize it, but the people that are going to be successful at businesses don't care that I say to not do it. But you have to be not even there's no getting ready for it. You're just get ready to experience a lot of pain and suffering and challenges, and you're going to have to pivot. It's not going to be what you envision it will be at this first year, for sure. It's going to change quite a bit. But if you just stick with it, you're either going to crash and burn like 99% of other companies that stick with it and are too stubborn to quit, or you might be a lucky 1% or whatever the odds are now that does make it, but you won't know unless you keep going through with
Yeah.
it. But yeah, get out now while you can. That's what I like to say for advice.
That's good advice. I like that. That's really good. Where do you see yourself in like the next year, 10 years, future outlook? Like, where do you hope to be? What are your dreams? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you getting out now?
Yeah.
Like,
Why didn't I get out?
yeah, why didn't you get out?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have, some fun having successes along the way and going to events and meeting great people. It's definitely a journey that is the most painful thing I've ever experienced, but also the most rewarding at the same time. I see myself in a year, and maybe why I started this so long ago but didn't realize it. I'm going to be a father for my first time. My first child's on the way. So doing it for somebody else now and a wife, being able to do what I was doing maybe selfishly 10 years ago of like, oh, I'm going to start my own business and sell it and become wealthy from it. That's all gone away. Like that doesn't even matter anymore. It's being able to provide for family and then bring something new into the world that didn't exist before. I think there's something cool about inventing something or having a new idea or being able to have a creative thought and then executing on it, actually implementing that idea and actually making it something real that's different and new in the world that wasn't there before. So I don't know. I think that there's some of that going on in my mind. Who knows? There's probably a lot more going on in there. But yeah, that's kind of, for the next year, it's just getting the company in a state where we have it kind of able to run on its own. I know that's wishful thinking, and a year might be too soon for wishing that, even though I have been working on this for 10 years now. But getting to a place where less and less work has to be done from my end in the sense of like physical or mental working through problems and more decision makings or more being able to delegate to others that are up and coming and being able to coach and train new employees that are new. We had an intern that was so great. Last year, we hired him after he graduated from Virginia Tech, of course, my alma mater, this year. So he's one of our newest employees that just started with us. That was an intern last year. That was great. So I don't know, just bringing up the next generation. Whether it's my new daughter that's coming into the world in a month, or people that are graduating from college, or just people that want to change from their old business and they want to do something new. Being able to train and teach and share with the next generation what we're doing and what we're building so that the next generation can be even more exciting and fun than it already is right now.
That's such a good message. Thanks so much for coming on, Daniel. It's been
Oh,
awesome.
man, it's been awesome. Are we at time already? It's
and
over?
We've been talking for a while. 5 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness. On the dot. Excellent. No, you've been a great host. I've really enjoyed just chatting with you, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
For sure.
And yeah, thanks a lot, everybody, if you're still listening. It's pretty cool. And we'll see you next time, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.